Hi guys, welcome back to LTF1. We're joined by a very special guest today. This is Jack, who on Twitter is known at Borat, which is probably the coolest at on Twitter.
I think I must have nabbed that right after the previous account holder got banned or something, I think. Very lucky.
Yeah, and today we're going to be previewing the Styrian GP this weekend, following on from the French GP, which was a classic for the standards of the French GP usually. So yeah, getting straight into it. The first issue, it was a big issue last week, and we're going to be talking about it again this week, is the curbs. Because we were talking earlier on Twitter when we were messaging, and we were saying that, and I remember from last year, that the curbs are causing issues for the Mercedes cars. So did you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it was, I'm not quite sure how far into the race it was, but it was the first of the two Austrian races. I remember hearing Bono getting on the radio to Lewis and also Valtteri's engineer to him, sounding very concerned about the overall reliability of the engine and the gearbox due to how harsh the vibrations were on the red and white curbs. So they were actually both advised to not use any curb at all unless they could help it. And it does make you wonder whether that's an issue that's going to crop up again this time, because if it is, that's probably lap time that they're not going to be able to easily give up without losing a significant amount of time.
Yeah, and especially with Mercedes this year, they've been, especially last week, shooting themselves in the foot with strategy-wise. And Lewis Hamilton said, and we'll talk a bit more about it later on in the video, about he expects this week to be tougher. So I wonder if that's just him sort of maybe previewing that issue for the weekend, if you like.
Yeah, I think Mercedes, they're kind of victims of their own success, really, aren't they? They've had it easy, quote easy, for such a long time, and that they've been so far ahead of the rest of the pack that strategic mishaps haven't really caused them any real grief if they have happened before. And Red Bull have always been the chasing ones that have had to take wild and risky moves to try and gain track position or try and gain an advantage where they can. So Red Bull are well versed at that. Mercedes, not so much. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they can kind of pull themselves together and start making the right calls and making more prompt calls when needed. For example, last weekend.
Yeah, because last weekend, as I said before, Mercedes shooting himself in the foot. And on the subject of curbs and last weekend, that was a big issue last week, with a lot of teams complaining about the curbs and them causing floor damage to their cars. And last year there was some curbs removed just before the GP because there was a lot of complaints. So I wonder if there's a whole sort of thing that the FIA need to go into to sort of reassess curbs on racetracks, because they seem to be causing a lot of issues recently and in previous years as well. So
it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you understand the reason they're there. They're there to create the hard track limit that everyone is crying out for, that we need. But in theory, they're not necessary. If track limits are enforced strictly, as they should be anyway, then people won't venture off the track, regardless of whether there's sausage curbs there or not. And in the budget cap era, teams can't afford to go breaking £100,000 wing every weekend because they've gone over a sausage curb. It seems like the punishment doesn't really fit the crime, does it?
Yeah. So for you, would you say that it's more of an issue that the teams need to sort of not so much get on with it, but essentially get on with it? Or do you think it's more of a thing that the FIA need to sort of go back and think, we need to adjust this here because this is causing sort of damage in an era where teams can't afford for loads of damage? And
I think they'll have to consider the cost implications. Definitely, it depends how many teams have an issue with it and take it to them. But I think it would be in their interest to cooperate with the teams rather than give them the flat no. But who knows? You never know with the FIA whether they'll why they do what they do.
Yeah.
It's anyone's guess.
Yeah, because recently it's been sort of F1 teams versus Pirelli versus the FIA. And, this will just be another headache for them, which I don't think they really want or need. So, So on the topic of Red Bull and Mercedes, last year Verstappen DNF'd, but his pace was good. and he was closing in on Bottas in P1, I believe. It was a gap of around 3.5 seconds. So this year, it looks like it's going to be even tighter, if not maybe the other way around. Because, Mercedes look to be the chasing team, as we said before. So, so with the track, how do you think Mercedes are going to fare this week?
Well, if you look at the trend of results, so in the hybrid era, it's been Mercedes. So if we start in 2014, it's been Mercedes, and then it's gradually shifted and become a Red Bull track. You'd have to imagine, because that's just the way their aero development's taken them. But if that's one of the very few tracks that Red Bull were able to win at previously, considering they've just beat Mercedes at Paul Ricard, you really would imagine. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Red Bull 1-2 this weekend, to be honest.
Yeah.
Considering the pace Max was able to bring last year, then this year, I think, wouldn't be surprised if they're way out in front. Yeah,
I've got to agree, to be honest, because at the Red Bull Ring. Yeah, Red Bull Ring, that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking something else. Red Bull Ring, that's what. There's the two big straights, and this year Mercedes have been, and last week especially, faster in the sort of the tighter sections with more turns, and Red Bull's speed on the straights has just been far better. So I think on those two big sort of straight sections, I can't see Mercedes getting too close, to be honest.
Red Bull have clearly gone in a development direction that's they're creating good downforce with their floor, to the extent where they're not having to apply so much rear wing. Certainly not as much as Mercedes anyway. That's evident from the last couple of Grand Prix that we've seen. And floor downforce is great, because you can have that set in such a way that the rear diffuser stalls out at your top speed, and you end up being able to get even more speed due to that. That doesn't really happen with the rear wing so much. So Red Bull have taken advantage of that, and it's working really well on their car. Like you said, the Mercedes, it prefers your medium to high speed corners, essentially your Paul Ricard type circuit. Red Bull, the smaller, twistier tracks. But then in this instance, Austria might not be a very long lap. It's not a very big track, but there is a lot of straights, and that will definitely play into Red Bull's hands. Yeah,
I've got to agree, to be honest. I can't see Mercedes being too sort of competitive, and I don't think Mercedes are expecting to be too competitive this week.
No, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you have to say, if Red Bull take another 2 wins on the trot, Mercedes are going to be in a bit of a precarious situation, aren't they? That'll be 5 races that have gone by without them taking a win. That'll put Red Bull a lot of points ahead in the constructors, and if it's Max taking those wins, he's gonna eke out quite a nice little lead, and that's what we're going to be 9 races into the season by the time that the second Austria race is done. So it's going to be interesting. Mercedes need to do something. They need to pull something out of the hat.
Because I guess, as you said, if it doesn't happen, that's going to be it's going to be 4 races in a row after this week that Red Bull have had a race winner, and the week after at the same track, I can't see Mercedes pulling anything magical out if they don't get it right this week. So I think we're both sort of on the same page with Red Bull looking like they're going to be the dominant force for the next couple of races at least. But still on the topic of last year, it feels like a long time ago now. So I've been sort of stretching to remember the details of the race. But I do remember, and we were talking about it earlier, about Lando Norris and McLaren's pace last year. And the question was, for me, do you think that McLaren can repeat that success? Because obviously this year, Lando Norris especially, I know Daniel Ricciardo's been getting used to the car, but Lando Norris, he's been consistent this year. He's had his run in the only driver to score points in every race so far. So what do you make of that? How do you expect McLaren to sort of fare maybe this weekend?
Lando has been extremely consistent, hasn't he? I mean, the way it feels to me, that McLaren Whereas other teams have fallen back a bit due to the new floor regs. McLaren seem to have stayed fairly strong, and they've stayed with the top two teams a lot more closely than the others. So you really from Lando you'd expect P5, P6. I mean, you might even. It's not out of the question that he could maybe even do better than that. He does well at this track, like you said. He's confident in the car. The team trust him. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. What he can do. But Danny Rick as well. You'd like to think that he can, with two races at the same track, 1 week after the other. It's like an extended test almost, isn't it? It's just more time with his bum in the seat. Get to grips with how that car operates more.
Yeah, because my sort of line of thinking is, I agree, Lando could easily get P5 and maybe even push for a P4, because personally, I think it's going to be Red Bull 1-2. And with Bottas, I'm not sure if because he's underperformed. Last week wasn't necessarily his fault, and he's had a lot of bad luck, as I've explained on previous videos. I'm not fully blaming him for anything, but with the sort of rumour, which is half confirmed fact, but nothing officially confirmed, that George Russell could be announced taking his seat the week after, or 2 weeks after, sorry. I don't know if I could see Bottas sort of pulling anything major out the hat to help Mercedes, to be honest, because...
No. He can kind of go either way, can't he, Valtteri? He'll either take a situation like last week and make the most of it and have an absolute stonking week, or he'll go the complete opposite and he'll just be completely under the radar. But yeah, if a P3 is going to come for Lando, it will definitely be at the expense of Bottas. You have to say there's Perez, Hamilton, Max. They're not going to be back there with Lando, are they? But Bottas easily could be.
Yeah, because again, as a lot of people have sort of said, there's been the Red Bull second driver curse, but Checo Perez has just been so solid this year, so I can't really see him dropping out. And yeah, I think that leaves room for Lando to potentially push for maybe even a podium. And yeah, talking about Danny Ricciardo, he looks a bit more settled now, don't you think?
He looks like he's enjoying himself again.
Yeah.
I think that's indicative. That's all you need to know really with him. If he's not got a smile on his face, then you know that he's concentrating on other things, isn't he? And he's not enjoying it. And he's someone that very obviously does normally enjoy to do what he does. When you look back at the videos of him at Red Bull during the good times, obviously not near the end, but even at Renault in the second year, he was in his element. He was embedded well within the team. They clearly loved him. He enjoyed working with that team as well, and then he had got to grips with the car and he was having fun. And it didn't look like that at the start of this season at McLaren. He looked a bit out of his depth.
Yeah,
he does seem to. Yeah, he's coming round, so we should see good things from him soon.
Yeah, because as you said, he looks more comfortable now, and I think McLaren's a very sort of Danny Ricciardo team to join. I think he can do well there. And yeah, another interesting battle there was last weekend. Obviously, it ended quite badly for Ferrari, but there was some battles between Ferrari, Alpine, and McLaren, and I think there'll be some like that this week. I hope. Who can? I know we've probably ruined the answer now about what you think, but who do you think will come out on top between sort of those three? Well,
I can tell you who I think will not come out on top, and you have to say Ferrari. They're going to have to do something pretty special to stay anywhere near McLaren for the rest of this season. Like going back to a normal type track like Paul Ricard, in like this week's instance, Austria. I don't know if it's the new technical directives around tyre pressures, but their car eats tyres and they don't know why. They don't think they can fix it without spending development tokens, which they don't have. So they're going to have to learn, and it might be they might learn quickly. It might take a few races, but they're going to have to learn how to adjust that car around its flaws to try and stop it eating up its tyres so much. I think they're going to struggle, at least for this first race. Maybe for the second one, they'll have some learnings they can bring to it to improve things.
Yeah, because I saw Bonotto saying in the week, basically, he thinks they're sort of screwed for the rest of the season with whatever's going on with their car at the minute. And they did seem to look more promising at the start of this year, Ferrari. Leclerc's had some good performances, so has Carlos Sainz. But they seem to be sort of slipping back away. And McLaren look, especially at the minute, they look fairly clear of Ferrari. Alpine have been interesting because Alonso's starting to look a bit more consistent now, and Ocon's done a very impressive job so far.
Yeah, Ocon, when he came back last year, he was kind of nowhere for a while, and it makes you wonder what traits that car has that means that you can't jump straight in. It's like the McLaren, isn't it? Same with Fernando this year. He wasn't able to get in there and instantly churn out the results. There's clearly potential there that the driver needs to unlock, and they need the experience in the car for a certain amount of time to learn how to do that. But Fernando's dragging that thing into the top 10. Ocon has been putting out similar good results as well. Maybe not so much at Paul Ricard, but I think again that was the same struggle everyone had, which was tyre degradation. It wouldn't surprise me to see them do quite well at Austria. I think they had a fairly good result last year.
Yeah, I was just trying to think back to Austria last year.
Yeah.
As I was saying, it was a long time ago, but Alpine certainly look very good this year. And I'm thinking back to last weekend, we did see some good overtakes from both the McLarens. I believe it was on Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
So who are you saying finishes top of the Formula 1.5 this weekend, the best of the rest?
McLaren are classed as that, aren't they? So you'd have to say them. Behind McLaren, who are going to be the obvious ones, I think Gasly. I think you can always rely on Gasly to pull something out. He's just at one with that car. He clearly really understands how it works, and he's got to a place that Yuki Tsunoda's still trying to get to. I'm sure it will come. But yeah, Gasly can drag that car to places it's not really got any right being. Last year, I think Racing Point were fairly strong, weren't they? Very strong, actually. I think it even gained a few protests from some teams because of how good they were. But
I remember that.
I don't know whether they'll have dropped down more or less in terms of performance to the cars around them. But if their performance is anywhere near as good as last year, then you'd hope to see them in the top 10. Maybe they can pull out some crazy tyre strategy again. That seems to be their thing at the moment, doesn't it? Stay out as long as possible, hope for a safety car or something. But even if not, they run the Overcut really well. They've been able to pull that off a couple of races now.
Yeah, it was just like with the Vettel podium a couple of weeks ago, completely unexpected. I guess no one thought it was going to happen, and I was wondering what was going on at the time. I thought, wasn't Vettel coming yet?
Yeah, it was a brilliant result for him.
So it's amazing, and it's always nice to see Vettel on the podium. He's a great driver.
Yeah.
And that leads us on to our next point, which was staying on the topic of Aston Martin this year, or Racing Point last year, was that Otmar, he's had a lot of problems with the new floor regulations this year. And because it was to do with the rake. I think it's they disadvantage high rake teams this year, I believe, the new regulations.
Yeah, so the floor regulations that came in, the regulation was basically set that you weren't allowed to do anything special with the floor in the rear, like in front of the rear tyre, between there and about halfway up the car. There's like a triangular section that the teams aren't able to put any strakes or fins or anything like that on. And Otmar, probably being pushed by Mr. Stroll, has taken a complaint, hasn't he, to the FIA, and said that it's disadvantaging low rate cars more than high rate cars, and that they were being unfairly penalised. But then you could argue no one made them copy a Mercedes. No one forced them to do that, did they?
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything about that for a little while. It's funny, it's gone quiet after they've had a few good results.
Yeah, because I remember at the start of the season when they were really struggling, Aston Martin, there was Otmar in the press every week saying, the floor regulations are unfair, they've got to change them. And yeah, as you say, since there's been some good results, it's gone a bit quiet over there.
I don't know what he really was expecting to happen. What was he expecting to come of that?
No, I don't know
really.
If the FIA is going to change the whole regulation just because Otmar says it's slowing our car down this year, so you must change it.
That's it.
Because I remember he was complaining it was costing them something like a second a lap when they were in Bahrain.
Yeah. But they did look, they were struggling with it at the start of the season, weren't they? They didn't understand. I mean, that's the problem with having copied another car's design like they had. They didn't have any of the baseline data that Mercedes would have had from years and years of running that car at all the tracks they had gone to. They had Aston Martin had none of that historical data to go back to and to compare anything with. They had to relearn everything after the floor change, and it's clearly taken them a few races to do so, but they do seem to be more on top of it now.
Yeah, they definitely look stronger, and I think with strategy as well, that's what's going to essentially help them more, which is the opposite of what Mercedes have done. So how do you see Aston Martin doing this weekend? Because they've struggled in qualifying recently, but they seem to pull out of the bag in races.
That's their thing, isn't it, at the moment? It seems like it's similar to the Mercedes in that it doesn't, and the opposite, in fact, to the Ferrari. So the Ferrari seems to light its tyres up instantly, but then churn through them quickly, whereas the Mercedes, the Aston Martin, they take a little while to warm them up. They don't have as good outlaps as the other teams do, but they can stretch those tyres a lot longer in the race. They can do much longer stints. So that seems to be where they're pulling back. I think they'll do quite well. I think it'd be nice to see another points finish from Lance and Seb. I don't know if that's too optimistic, considering the other teams around them who also quite like the track.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll be off the back of the grid or anything like that.
Yeah, because and this year, just a sort of general point is that the Formula 1.5, it's definitely been really interesting this year because there's been a lot of really sort of close cut teams, I guess. Like we haven't even properly touched on sort of AlphaTauri, but AlphaTauri, McLaren, Ferrari, I guess, and Aston Martin as well, and Alpine have all been sort of at each other's throats and been very sort of competitive this year, and it's making for a really interesting competition.
If you look at some of the qualifying sessions, at times there's been half a second splitting the top, like from 5th to 15th place. There's nothing in it. It's the difference of a mistake or not on a lap, but like the most minor of mistakes, and you could either get into the final qualifying session or be out in the first. It's the most competitive Formula One's been for a long time. Right before a rule change, so that's good. It's back to square one again.
Yeah. So for the weekend, at the end of our videos, we like to give a prediction for the weekend. Let's start off with who's your top three for the weekend?
In order, I think it'll be Max, then Perez, then Hamilton.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying any different to that, to be honest. So. Yeah, and let's go top five. Who do you think will be fourth and fifth?
Lando and Sainz. No, not Sainz. Just remembered the Ferrari tyre thing. Maybe Bottas. I think Lando, Bottas.
Yeah. For me, it's a toss-up between Lando, maybe P4. Bottas P5, but maybe as a sort of surprise package, I guess. If Pierre Gasly can deliver a sort of outstanding qualifying performance again this week and get himself in a sort of top 5 or 6, I think that might be another sort of surprise, I guess, for this weekend.
I think all it takes for something like that to happen is, say, Valtteri qualifies third, and then doesn't get the best start. We've seen that before with him. Do you remember Monza last year? He dropped to like 7th place on the first lap, didn't he? All it takes is for a start like that, and the race just gets away from you. And I think it's perfectly plausible that you could see something like that.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's predicted that there'll be rain this weekend, and we know how Bottas fared in the rain last time in Turkey.
Yeah.
So, so you never know. It could be another sort of Bottas fidget spinner performance, but those have been our predictions. If you guys disagree, because I'm probably wrong.
I'm definitely wrong. Yeah.
But if you agree or disagree, let us know in the comments down below. And it's been really fun making this video. Thanks for joining us. And you can find Jack on Twitter at Borat, which is a really cool app. Really cool bloke. And thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And see you after the race.
Cool. Cheers.